Holy shit. What a game. What a fucking game. The Seattle Seahawks win 27-24 in overtime in Santa Clara against the formerly undefeated San Francisco 49ers. And ladies and gentlemen, this does call for a drink. Oh, how sweet it is. How sweet it is. Because I remember last season, boys and girls, I reviewed that game where Nick Mullins kicked the Seattle Seahawks ass and win it in overtime. But this time, it was different. This time, coming into the game, two very different teams. San Francisco, undefeated, this level of swag. Jimmy GQ, Jimmy Garoppolo, looking good, feeling good, and leading the team down the path of merciless destruction. Whereas the Seattle Seahawks, not so great at home, questionable defense, but despite that, 4-0 on the road. So you had that going. And early on, it just looked as though Seattle's defense had the almost interceptions. They had a lot of the almost interceptions. The one that missed, the curious one where Shaquille Griffin actually did get the interception, but there was a holding call on the defense side where you look at Seattle and think, you guys are usually good on the defensive penalties, but somehow this game early on, you just got a little overexcited. And the problem in the first quarter so happened to be the San Francisco defense was as intimidating, as terrifying, as good as we've all imagined. They were giving Russell Wilson and that offense such a hard time from that first quarter and onward that it just looked as though it was going to be a very, very long game where our offense was going to be stifled by this stud defense. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I know there's that animosity between all the NFC West teams, but when I see good football, I'll recognize that shit. And that 49ers defense was stellar today. To keep the Seattle Seahawks scoreless 10-0 in that first quarter, for Bourne to get the passing touchdown, and this young rookie who was replacing Robbie Gould because of an injury, Chase McLaughlin, did fantastic today. So they get 10 points on the board. You're moving into the second quarter thinking, all right, Seattle's got to do something. Of course, offense had some trouble there down the line because listen, when you got this fucking defense that's going against an offense that can be a little bit shaken at times, you know, Russell Wilson maybe holds the ball for dear life because his O-line just lets elite defensive players fucking crumble that goddamn pocket. But what really made the difference in that second quarter was Jadeveon Clowney. Clowney getting a fumble return, and that TD happens because Jarran Reed is there to pressure the fuck out of Jimmy GQ. And Jimmy GQ, in that sense, did not look good. And for Seattle to get that touchdown on the board was huge. Of course, that's kind of stating the obvious, but for Clowney to finally make his mark on the stat line, and he had a phenomenal game today. I believe it was one sack, 5 quarterback hits, 1 touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. But an absolutely fantastic effort by him. And where you see Seattle's defense just finally awakening after 10 weeks, they're finally playing up to the potential. You see Seattle's offense just taking maybe a step or two back. DK Metcalf, after a gorgeous catch and the ball nearly at the 5-yard line, near the goal, fumbles the ball, and it's a huge shout out to the San Francisco 49ers defensive player, Tarts, able to get the stop, create the fumble, and it gives the San Francisco 49ers a little bit of breathing room going into that halftime, right? Because it's only 7-10. in halftime for the San Francisco 49ers. And once you get into third quarter mode, of course Russell Wilson's going to get the ball back, but you've done what you can on him from the defensive side if you're San Francisco 49ers. So they get a couple of really good licks in towards Russell Wilson, who, poor guy, he was just getting ragdoll at times by that San Francisco 49ers D-line. Fantastic, by the way. That D-line is just terrifying to go against. And then you have Seattle's defense taking their turn and saying, all right, you think this is all we're going to do? No. We're going to get an actual interception. Quandre Diggs, who starts his first game as a Seattle Seahawks, gets the INT. Beautiful. It was a beautiful catch by Quandre. And you start wondering, is Jimmy GQ going to struggle all game? Yeah, he got the passing touchdown, but following that, it's a fumble and an INT. Oof. And you got to be thinking, all right, Seattle's going to capitalize off this, especially in the third quarter. They're going to go off in the third quarter, and they do. And it's our guy himself again, Jacob Hollister, getting his third touchdown of the season to make the score 14-10. Of course, Jason Meyer getting that extra point, my boy Myers. And Seattle stays aggressive in this third quarter. And I was actually watching this at a bar with a couple of my buddies. And, you know, my buddy who's a San Francisco 49ers fan kept telling me, I know Seahawks is going to be a fourth quarter team, but I told him, listen, we're going to score in the third quarter, get a little bit tricky in the fourth quarter, and hell, I mean, if we tie this game, that would be hilarious. Little did we know. But also little did we know that Jimmy GQ was not having a great game. He wasn't. He flat out wasn't. For him to create a fumble, all right, I mean, by all optics, Jimmy GQ fumbled this next ball. And once he fumbles this ball, Seattle figures, all right, let's just blow this wide open. Chris Carson getting a touchdown. Jason Myers with the extra point, good to go. 21-10. Seattle's up 11 points. And when you are up 11 points, boys and girls, what do? You start maybe scoring a bit more. Maybe putting some points on the board. But unfortunately for Seattle, their offense just was not prime time today. Their offense struggled. And this is a huge credit to this 49ers defense. Absolutely fantastic effort from them. For them to create a fumble, get the fumble return for a touchdown, get the 2-point conversion for that touchdown, and follow that up after a couple of drives there, to follow it up with the field goal, tying the game back up to 21-21 was huge. And yes, in that regard, Jimmy GQ did well. But overall, he had a very shaky game. Jimmy GQ had a very, very shaky game. And you could kind of say the same thing with Russell Wilson. You can. Although some of the big plays Russ was making down the field, of course, you can say our receivers are fantastic. Josh Gordon, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, who, by the way, did get injured late in that fourth quarter with a bruised leg injury. So hopefully nothing too significant to put him out for too long. We do have a bye week coming up, so hopefully Tyler gets enough rest. But you also put in guys like Malik Turner and David Moore, who did some great work. And to get our offense down the field on that 49ers defense was something in the fourth quarter that was going to be difficult, but they were able to do it. And when you're up 24-21 with a minute or so left on the clock, you're just hoping, the 49ers don't get down the field. This is where maybe the defense for the Seahawks got a little bit tired, or the 49ers offense just said, all right, let's grab an end to this. Jimmy GQ and the gang start going down the field, marching on down, and Chase McLaughlin, with 1 second left on the clock, automatic, ties the game 24-24. And with 1 second left, there's really not much that could have been done. So you now head into overtime, and the whole controversy with overtime is the whole thing with Geno Smith, getting mistaken for heads or tails by the referee. And people are saying, oh, that's the worst officiating as all for San Francisco. I'm going to be really honest, man. The refereeing and the officiating for the NFL season in its entirety has been horrible. But in this specific game, the refs were calling bad calls on both sides. They really were. They were missing calls. They were just blatantly making these stupid-ass calls. You're thinking, what the fuck is that a holding for? That doesn't make any goddamn sense. But this has been the narrative with the officiating. This has been. Now, I hear that clip, and I hear Geno Smith saying head. And they actually get head. Seattle has possession of the ball. Start going down the field, marching on down. And Russell throws an interception. And you know what that means, boys and girls. After your possession, you go down the field, get the ball intercepted. The other team has an opportunity to march down the field. And if they score a field goal or a touchdown, game's over. Game's over. And at this point, I'm panicking. I'm absolutely panicking. I'm just hoping, Seattle's defense get a couple of good stops. But it just keeps getting worse. And you're just hoping that, all right, this is going to be really rough. It's a 43-yarder. McLaughlin's been automatic all game long. But a weird inkling kind of came in my head. And the Greg Zuerlein missed field goal started playing in my head again. And there was that 1% optimism in my head thinking, maybe he'll shank it. Maybe. And just when I thought I had wizardry powers, it was confirmed. Chase McLaughlin misses from 43 yards, shanking the field goal. And this is awful for the kid. And yeah, I know, I'm a fucking Seahawks fan. I should hate the fucking 49ers players, all the fucking fans and shit. Whatever, man. The kickers already get enough grief, and this is a rookie kicker who had a fantastic game all throughout this 60-plus minutes of football, and he's going to be measured by that miss, and it sucks, but unfortunately, that's the business of football, all right? And with that miss, Seattle had another opportunity to go down the field. Russell Wilson was not going to fuck up this time. Russell Wilson knew it was time to get clutch mode on. Ladies and gentlemen, when you have 2 minutes left on the clock in overtime or fourth quarter, I will tell you this. I want nobody else commanding that field other than Russell Carrington Wilson. Of course, unless his name is Tom Brady, which I will consider. But Russell Carrington Wilson does his job. Passes, runs. He can fly, he can fight, and he can... Russell Wilson gets it done. Gets Seattle into prime field position. And Jason Myers, who has been horrible earlier in this small sample space of 9 weeks for the Seattle Seahawks. Small sample space, of course. It's not the entirety of the season, but 9 weeks of real meh kicker work. But Jason Myers comes up fucking huge and gets the game winner to end this beautiful matchup, 27-24 in the favor of the Seattle Seahawks. Time runs out in overtime. Ladies and gentlemen, is it hyperbole if I say this was the best game of the season so far? It had everything. It wasn't just a stupid shootout. There was defensive effort. There were great back and forths. It went into overtime, and even in overtime, great back and forths. So much drama. And boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. This shit was bananas. Bananas. Yes, boys and girls, I can spell. And what I can also spell is QB. And for today, That kind of stood for not that great. I know that's not the literal acronym, but hear me out here. Both quarterbacks didn't really have a great game. And let's actually read off on that. Jimmy Garoppolo, 248 yards, 24 out of 46 pass attempted, passes made, whatever the fuck, right? 24, 46. You know what the fuck I mean. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 2 lost fumbles. And overall, it wasn't a great game, but he wasn't awful. And I know I feel like I kind of backtrack what I said, earlier in the third quarter and fourth quarter when talking about Jimmy GQ. But those numbers aren't like just trash, but they're not great. Okay, they're somewhere around, if we're giving a great percentage, like 60%, like a D or D plus. I'll just stick to D. But the real eyesore in the stat column and on the eye test for the San Francisco 49ers in this game was the running game, or the lack thereof. They totaled for 87 rushing yards, the San Francisco 49ers. And you got to think, man, I thought the 49ers running game was going to take, the San Francisco 49ers into that next level. But this game, they were suppressed down. And again, shout out to the Seattle Seahawks defense. They came up big. They did. And I was more than happy. More than happy that, without our boy Sherman, we're still getting stops. We're still getting great things. Shout out to the boy Shaquille Griffin. Shaquille Griffin was fantastic today. Getting swatted fucking balls. Getting all over the receivers. He was great. And he did have that interception that was called back because of defensive brain fart. But Shaquille was great. And shout out to Shaquem Griffin. Shout out to Shaquem Griffin. He is getting third down plays. When the ball is at third down and you need stops, they put Shaquem as a pass rusher. And I'll tell you what, man, get him for a couple more reps. I think he's going to do damage in the upcoming weeks. This guy was a bit of a newbie, but you can already tell, oh boy, he can get at some battle lines. And I cannot wait for Shaquem to get more stops and runs. It's going to be fucking great. Of course, guys like Quandre Diggs, Jadeveon Clowney do get honorable mentions for being beasts. And our D-line, Poona Ford, Jaron Reed, guys like Al Woods, Quentin Jefferson, getting some really, really nice stops in there. And, of course, I got to talk about him. I do got to talk about my man, Russell Carrington Wilson. That's right, boys and girls. Russell Carrington Wilson doing his thing, doing his job of winning games. Fucking 232 yards, 24 out of 34 passes completed and passes attempted. 1 touchdown, 1 unfortunate interception. He loses the fumble, but the fumble doesn't actually go towards him, which, okay, I get it. But the other fun part that we do have to mention is that Russell had 53 yards, rushing yards, on 6 attempts, where you have to look at those attempts and think, oh, wow, that was immense, especially in a situation in overtime where I believe it was like a 15-plus yard run. He made it, and it basically ended the game. It basically gave us the win. And this is what Russell Wilson just does best. He helps us win games. We beat an undefeated San Francisco 49ers team because of this guy. Yeah, on the sack column, he didn't do that great. He didn't. But neither did the other quarterback. And guess what? Our quarterback, marginally better, won the game. He won us the game. And I'll tell you this too. And I told this to passer buyers and other folks who are 49ers fan at the bar. This was a great game. In my opinion, even if the Seattle Seahawks lost this in overtime, I wouldn't have been mad. I would have said, you know what? Seattle blew plenty of opportunities. Kind of surprised we didn't end this in regulation, but what a great game. Would have happily taken that L knowing that we got one of the best Monday Night Football games, period. But Seattle comes out with a goddamn win. That's the important part. I don't give a shit about anything else. That's the goddamn important part. Seattle Seahawks grab the win. And ladies and gentlemen, that makes your Seattle Seahawks 8-2 on the season. And the San Francisco 49ers, at first in the NFC West, are only 8-1. How delicious is that? Well, I'll tell you what. It's as delicious as having these two goddamn things at once. With that, boys and girls, I'm going to go ahead and leave you there with this unbearable arrogance. But great game by both teams. And Seattle going into a bye week should get rested up, should get everyone recuperated, and be ready for week 11 at Philadelphia against the Philadelphia Eagles. So, go Hawks! Follow me at the Sky Lounge on all the links in the description below. Like, comment, subscribe for more daily content. Now, fuck off.